And welcome everybody to another episode of the Most Important Conversations. September, how are you doing today?
Doing great, doing great. Everything's going well. How about you?
I'm doing good as well. Lots of exciting conversations that we're having now about relationships and leadership and all kinds of different things as we continue to expand our impact and reach. And I know one of the things that you're interested in talking about today is something that we've been dealing with internally. By the way, everyone watching and listening, we do a complimentary meditation every morning at 7 o'clock Pacific time, 10 o'clock Eastern time. If you're interested in learning more about that, we will direct you to the website where there's some information that you can learn how to join that. And what we've been doing is sort of combined meditation and visualization around money for the last, month or so, and really deep diving and delving into money. And September, I know that was one of the things you wanted to talk about today because you've been having some pretty big insights. So I'd invite you to share what's going on for you around this.
For a long time, you hear these conversations about, what's your money story? What did you observe when growing up? And that's been very, very helpful. I would say the first memory that I have about money, I was probably 8 years old. I mean, there's other memories, but the one that really stood out to me, the one that I addressed first, was standing in the driveway with my dad. I'm about 8 years old. My father owned his own construction business. He had a pretty successful business out of Nashville. And something he said when he got out of the truck that day put it in my mind that I'll never be able to create money for myself. Somebody else will have to do it for me. I distinctly remember programming that. So that's one piece. That was a big piece. That was a really huge, like, oh, wow, that makes a lot of sense. And you can start seeing the ripple effect of that belief. But as we continue to dive deeper, there's other programming. And the other programming was more subconscious. While I do think the situation with my dad in the driveway was subconscious, it just kind of laid in the front. It was easy for me to grab. So I had to do a little more digging. And I realized that when my parents were married, they constantly fought. I was so grateful when they got a divorce because the fighting would be over. And they primarily fought a lot about money and the story of, my father was, everything's going to be okay. Don't worry about it. And my mom's, there's never enough, but I was never without anything as a child. So it really sent a very mixed message. I always had what I needed. If I wanted something, I never wanted for anything. I was very well taken care of as a child. So it definitely sent a mixed message of what that means. And I think the storyline of I'll never be able to make money for myself, somebody will have to do it, also plays into the awareness that I had recently, another layer that has come to the surface. And it comes to the relationship with money. It seems like such a cliche term to say, oh, you need to identify your relationship to money. Well, what the heck does that actually mean? And I put an experience to that cliche phrase that we would hear. And in meditation, I have the awareness that my relationship with money now is that I let money lead. I'm not leading money. So I'll say yes to things knowing that I should be compensated, but I leave that up to somebody else to make the decision for. So again, it's that idea of, oh, I can't do it. Somebody else is going to have to make that decision for me. But when I look back over my careers, I've had a few. I've been in real estate. I've owned a few businesses. Both of my parents were business owners. So I knew that was a path for me. And I tried this business, tried that business, just like anybody would when they're starting out. I was probably 17 when I started my first business. And then I took a real estate career as my mom is a broker and owns her own real estate. And I thought, okay, this is a cool path. And I had fun and I learned a lot. But when I look back over all of the careers that I've had, all the things that I did to generate income, I did pretty well for myself. It's like you're blind to it. It's like I wasn't seeing that part of my experience. I'm only seeing the experience of, somebody else has to make that decision for me. Even when I was making the money, it tied into that. Well, this person's going to buy this house, so they're making the decision to pay me. And so it's, again, giving my power away. You talked about that yesterday on meditation, is where are you giving your power away around the relationship that you have with money. And so that's, I would like to unpack that, get some perspective on it, share this here in this conversation, because it's just not talked about this at this level. That's why we're
Yeah.
doing, right?
That's why we're doing what we're doing. Well, everything's a relationship to, everything's a relationship, first of all. We have relationships to others. We have relationships to ourselves. We have relationships to things in our life, which are extensions of ourself. There's this old saying that I'm sure everyone's heard: wherever you go, there you are. And that applies to every topic we could potentially talk about, including money. So your relationship to money, how you relate to money is how you relate to yourself. Money is a totem. It is a thing we project ourselves onto, and it's very a subconscious thing that we do. We project our value or lack thereof onto money. We project our hopes, our dreams, our power, right? Onto money. So if we have it, we feel powerful. If we don't feel powerful. So money is external to us in that sense. It's how we understand and relate to ourselves as powerful or weak, as attractive or unattractive. And so there's so much about this money conversation that what I would say is that everybody, until they develop some level of mastery around it, has a messed up relationship with money. And that could be said, the same could be said and could be true about anything else. I mean, you have messed up relationships with people, with yourself, with the environment, with career, what you do for work. We have messed up relationships until we develop a certain mastery. The way I think of it is all of those things, including money, are topics. So they're like leaves on a tree, metaphorically. There's so many topics, so many leaves, but there's only one trunk and there's one root system. And so I'm interested in getting sourceful about these things. The topic is an entry point, almost like, there's many sides and facets to a prism. And, each one could be an entry point. There's different colors as you turn the prism, but there's only one core. And so it's the same kind of metaphor here. So what is the essence? What is the most important relationship that we need to pay attention to? It's the relationship to ourself. We're the trunk. We're the root system. Instead of looking out at the leaves, at the topics and fixating, gee, if I could just get that one leaf to look a certain way or grow or turn a different color or whatever, then my whole life would be perfect, right? Yeah, but what is the nutrient system? What is the energy system that connects to that leaf? It's you. So it's wherever you go, there you are. And so money is one of these things that everyone has a really skewed relationship with because we other it. We experience it as something outside of us that we need to analyze, fix, address, when the reality is, if we realize that we're projecting onto money our power, our hopes, our dreams, our weaknesses, our, areas where we feel incompetent or whatever, all of that shows up in money. So money, like many things, is a powerful place to gain insights about who we actually are. And by the way, that doesn't just necessarily mean whether you have a lot of money or not. So we have to be careful here because, there are people who choose, they may have a very healthy relationship to money and they may not have a lot of it by choice. So the key here is to be able to get to a place of choice. You cannot be in a position of choice around any topic, whether it's your money, whether it's your career, whether it's your relationships with other people, romantic or otherwise. You cannot be at a place of choice because think about who's doing the choosing, right? So to get to choice, you got to know who is doing the choosing and based on what criteria. And so that means yourself. You're doing the choosing. Well, what's the criteria you base it on? So there are people who have, less money than others. They're not billionaires or whatever, but they may be very embodied, very present, very self-aware, and therefore very powerful. And it may be a choice. An example, a monk. Okay, someone who decides, you know what? I just want to be in the service of things that are esoteric and spiritual and help shine a light for people. to know this aspect of this dispensation of reality. I'm going to be a monk. A monk isn't after a lot of money. That's not what they're doing. Right now, they have the money they have to do the work that they have. So if we think of money as a tool, a technology to accomplish something, sometimes you need a lot of money, sometimes you don't. The core thing to look at here is the relationship to money. So I say that because I don't want people to relate that, oh, I've been doing all this work on myself, trying to understand, to be at choice. Who am I? Who's doing the choosing? Trying to drop into my power. And, what I'm clear about what I want to do in this life for the world is X, but I don't need a lot of money to do that. So now do I feel shame because I don't have a lot of money, and money is supposed to be a measurement of my value? Money measures not your value, it measures what society values. And so what happens is, as human beings, we're trying to be accepted by the society, accepted by the group. So we tend to skew what's important by what do they say I should do? Who do they say I should be, right? But when you drop into power, you're no longer concerned with that. It's what's my intention? Where am I coming from? What is it that I want to be the creator of in this world? And I'm going to need tools. I'm going to need resources. I'm going to need money. So you need to measure your relationship to money within the context of the world you're creating yourself. A monk does not need a lot of money.
Mhm.
So in the world of monkness, you can then say, okay, within that world, I have a healthy or unhealthy relationship to money because of what's going on. A monk should not be comparing his world to billionaire Wall Street world. Two different worlds, two different requirements, right? So it's just really, I know I've said a lot. It's important to kind of understand that to even start this conversation, you need to understand who you are, what your intention is, where you're coming from, what it is you want to be of service of and accomplish in the world. And then money is a tool to do that. Not even the only one, but it's a tool to do that. And so now that's where from that place, you want to start to look at, okay, what is my relationship to money in the context of who I am and what I'm trying to accomplish? I don't know if that answered your question. I kind of went on a bit of a.
No, I mean, I think it laid down a good foundation, and looking, and as you were talking, I was thinking, okay, how else does this idea that I can't do it, somebody else has to do it for me, would show up? And it takes me back to the conversation of I'm not enough. So I've spent a lot of years on that conversation. And in fact, my most profound awareness that I had around that was in meditation. I had been working on the topic with a coach about feeling this not enoughness conversation. And again, looking back over my life, it's like, well, I'm not a good enough mom. But if I look at my two children, they're amazing human beings.
Mm.
How can you be not enough and raise something like that?
Right.
So it's like, again, when we talk about the brain is kind of, not very useful sometimes. It keeps it safe, but that's probably about it. It won't allow us to see the things that there could be danger there, or there's certain things that we just don't see. What's that video where the people were playing basketball, and then the ape moved across the screen, but you're trying to count how many times the ball bounces. You don't see the that walks across the street. Your brain doesn't even recognize that. So in applying that into other areas is like the brain is not recognizing the thing. It's just recognizing I need to be safe here. I need to be secure here.
Right.
So there's a little bit of having the awareness about this mechanism that sits on top of our shoulders. We think, oh, well, it's in my brain. I know it. It's true. I see it. Well, no, not necessarily. And so not the enoughness. Let me go back to that for just a moment. I was in meditation. I've been working on this topic, and I got very still, as I do in meditation. And there was silence, and I heard a voice say, "What do you want?" Nothing came to mind. And then the voice got louder and closer to me and says, "What do you really want?" And what came up was, "I want to know that I'm enough." And what I heard back was, "You are enough. You are more than enough." And it was, for me, how I would interpret that experience is that was another version of me coming, that higher self. Some people will say, oh, it's my higher self that I'm communicating with. But it felt like me. It wasn't outside of myself. And it's then that I realized, oh my gosh, I really am enough. Now, even though that part of the conversation has been nurtured within myself and I'm working on that and I'm able to notice when it will show up and I'll work on that piece, I don't think I really understood the ripple effect that internal conversation and the seeds that it planted in other areas of my life.
Mm.
And money could be one of them. So
Mhm.
this idea that I'm not enough to be able to do this myself, I need to rely on somebody else. That to me is a ripple effect of that conversation and just another layer for me to look at and go, oh, sneaky little thing, you showed up right there. That's
Mhm.
where I planted a seed in that moment, and planting the seeds in the past of that programming subconsciously of I'm not enough to do this myself. But how ironic that if I stop and look back, I can prove myself wrong.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you can see the evidence of the opposite of what the inner talk, the self-talk that you've got going on, right?
Yes.
Yeah. I'm trying to remember, there's a celebrity. Gosh, I wish I could remember her name. It's been in the media recently. She tells the story of having a stroke, and maybe it'll come to me through the course of this conversation. But uh, it was a profound moment for her because she said that she was. I'm trying to remember. She was having this stroke, or she had had a stroke, and her brain wasn't working, but she was aware that she had had a stroke, and she was like, you know, my brain couldn't move my arm. I would tell it move my arm, and it couldn't move it, but I was aware of the mechanism of what it would take to move the arm. And so she started asking, well, who's the person, who's the entity that has the awareness, even though the brain's not working? Right. And it was a profound moment for her because she suddenly realized, I am not my brain, that the brain is a tool, is an access point. We talk about this all the time, some of the new research around consciousness, and that the brain is a receiver of consciousness, and it also is the controller of the physical body. But there is this gray zone where we're still unclear of how does this all work together. We just don't know yet. Anyway, that was an interesting story that made me think about what you're saying here, because we are not limited by the brain. We have a sense of self that is outside of the conditioning, the mechanism of the brain, the habit making, addiction making behavior of the brain. And around the topic of money, we have habits and conditioning and all of this stuff going on. And we related our self worth to money as though it's a measurement of our self worth. And the irony is that once you start to internalize and centralize your self-worth as an intrinsic value that is you, and it is not conditional on anything outside of yourself, you'll tend to actually make more money because you tend to stand up and speak and communicate and articulate, and it inspires, and there's a charisma to that, and people are attracted to that, and people pay for what is of value to them. So the more you value yourself, the more valuable you are to the people that you're in relationship with and the world around you, and the more they'll pay you for that value. And the irony is, when we don't value ourselves, when we're not connected to the authentic essence of who we are, when we can't be at choice because we're in reaction to all of the external, the leaves of the tree, the external world, when we're in reaction even to money, we're not standing powerfully in ourself, and it absolutely sabotages our ability to succeed in any area of life, whether it's monetarily, business, relationships, you name it. So again, it all comes back to that root of the tree.
Yeah, I would agree. There was something else that I was going to say on that as you were talking, and it just left my mind. Oh, I know it was with the awareness of where I play, how much energy and control I give money.
Mm.
You talked about this morning in meditation about the victimhood around money and not to be a victim of it. And when I think of being a victim, I think, woe is me. It's heavy. It doesn't feel good. But I never thought about being a victim from this perspective that I'm allowing money to dictate what I can and cannot have.
Mm-hmm. Mhm.
And the contrast and having the awareness, I could, in meditation, I can lean into what is the contrast feeling? If I know what this feels like, what would the opposite feeling feel like? And
Mhm.
the opposite feeling feels much like when I finally had the awareness of what values I bring to the table professionally. It was so relieving and it felt like I own this fucking lane right here. This is mine.
Mhm.
I own it.
Mhm.
And there's like an ownership to it, but not in a competitive manner, not in a malicious manner. It's more of just taking ownership, taking full ownership that this is something I have control over. This is something that I can change in my life. I don't have to stay in this situation because of how I'm thinking. I can change my thinking and absolutely change the outcome and the relationship that I have to money just by the little switch of awareness, that internal awareness, and asking what would be the contrast of that feeling. Feels empowering. And the opposite does not feel empowering.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
opposite feels like being a victim of it, but not with the texture of woe is me. Life is against me. Oh my God. Not like that.
No, yeah. Yeah. Whatever you can't let go of, including our stories, owns us, right? And so, yeah, victim doesn't just mean woe is me. It's like, where is the power centered,
Yeah.
right? So is
Mhm.
the power center in the totem that is money that we project our hopes, our dreams, our fears, our everything onto? Is that where because we're giving our power away, right? So humans have this tendency. I don't quite understand it, although I have some theories around it, to want to give our power away.
Mhm.
We want to give our power away to money. We want to give our power away to the people we're in relationship to. We want to give our power away to our political leaders and others. And I think that at the heart of this is an inability and potentially even a fear to
Mhm.
step into our own power because of the responsibility that it would require. It would imbue a certain responsibility on us, and it's like someone else needs to be responsible for this, right? And you look at the grievance culture we have right now, where there's always someone else to blame. You know, someone should have done this, someone should have done that, and the litigious, culture we have with everyone suing each other. You live in Florida, you guys get hurricanes all the time. I don't know how many hundreds of lawsuits are probably going to go down from the recent hurricane because someone should have built that building better. Someone shouldn't have planted that tree there. Someone should, so we've got this victim mentality that's super baked into the culture. And so a victim mentality is where someone else has the power. And then we can blame them for it because we're not taking responsibility for ourselves. And we do that with money. When you say, I can't afford something, right? Where's the power located there? I'm not talking about the practical reality that right now in your bank account, you may not physically have the amount of money required to go buy that new car, right? But I can't afford is more than just this moment. I can't afford is a mindset. I can't afford becomes a way of being. I can't afford becomes a situation where we give the power away. So so I can't afford shouldn't even be what we say. It's I don't currently have the money in my account for that, but I can afford it, meaning I value myself enough. I know I'm powerful enough. I'm taking on the responsibility of being the kind of person that thing that I want or need in my life is within my power to obtain. It's within my reach, right? So we have to be really careful with the programming, the auto programming that we're constantly doing in our mind about everything, not just money. Whenever we say I can't, we're programming our subconscious mind to be a victim,
Mhm.
right? And so because what we're saying is I can't, so someone else will have to, or I can't, and someone else can, right? It's this distinguishing thing that we do, and it lets us off the hook. When they say poverty is a mentality, it absolutely is a mentality because inside of the poverty mentality, and that doesn't mean that people aren't poor and that there won't be work required for them to transform that situation. Of course, there will be. But the being stuck in poverty is a mindset of I can't.
Yeah, you
Pure
talked
and
about
simple.
you talked about that in a couple of days. It was sometime this week that you had talked about that, where some money stories is it's hard to earn money. Making money
Yeah.
is hard. That
Yeah.
conversation. I think you said that was part of your
That
program.
was my story.
Yes, that
Yeah.
was your story. That money is hard, and you go, look at how many poor people work their ass off,
Yeah.
two jobs. It's not
Yeah.
about this.
It's-
Hard is not about. It's not how you obtain it. And then,
No.
how many people do you personally know that actually enjoys their life? They don't have to work too terribly hard. They put in some effort. Some days are a little busier than others, but all in all, it's a balanced lifestyle. They're happy. They don't have stresses. Their bills are paid. How many people do you know like that?
Yeah. Yeah. Tons.
And they have
And
no money.
that was the epiphany for me. So growing up, I was modeled in my family, my parents modeled to us sort of the American dream kind of thing. You work hard, you play by the rules, and you own a house, you get a car, like that trope has got to die, to be honest, because it just is way outlived its usefulness. That doesn't mean there isn't hard work to create the thing you want to create. If you're doing it from a place of power, it won't feel like hard work because it'll feel like I'm in flow and I'm in alignment with who I authentically am. And I'm in the service of doing what is authentic to this being. I'm at choice. So it doesn't mean there isn't work to be done, but it won't occur as hard. The flip side is, I watched my parents working, two jobs they didn't want to do. Right. But it's like, well, it's the only way I can earn money. And so that is so destructive to your soul and to your energy because here you are spending 8, sometimes 10, 12 hours a day, expending your life force energy, doing something you wouldn't choose to do if you were standing in your power, but because you're standing in a place of weakness, because you're embodying I can't energy, you don't try the thing that you would really want to do, that you would love to do, that you would do for free, and do it all day effortlessly. You don't try it because we've been so conditioned in our society. And frankly, our society, the system and structure of it is so broken that most people end up being wage slaves. Literally, this is the modern form of slavery that we are witnessing right now.
So on the topic of people putting in, 10 to 14 hours a day in a work day, I think there's a mentality. I can say this through my own experience that at some point in my life, I thought I need to know how to do this in order to do this. And that's not the case at all. You don't need to know all of the steps in order to go after and do that. Just take the step.
Mhm.
And the next step will present itself. So I'm going through an experience today where we're supposed to close on a deal. Funding fell through at the last moment. Oh, okay, that's a little disheartening. But in reaching out and scouting with other people I know, I have 4 different leads right now.
Mm.
That wasn't there in front of me last week.
Right.
I didn't even know
Yeah.
that was available to me.
Yeah.
But because this thing happened and I'm not giving up, I'm not going to quit.
Mm-hmm.
I'm committed to this. I'm going to see it through and I'm going to do whatever it takes to make it happen. And that means reaching out to everybody I know to say, hey, here's an opportunity.
Yeah.
Now I have 4 leads that I'm following up on within just the last hour. But that's the thing. It's like, take the step that I could have said, oh, it's a dead deal. It's not going.
You would have said, I
Walk
can't.
away. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
This is going to happen. I can't do it. I said, all right, back to the drawing board. Who do I know?
Yeah. When we sit in I can't, we cut off possibility, right? And because when we sit in I can't, we aren't willing to do the thing that needs to be done. So I ask the question to people, what are you unwilling to do? And most people can't answer that question because they don't know until they're presented with something. So if you want to find out what you're unwilling to do, listen to your own inner dialogue or even the dialogue you have with other people for I can't, or, any myriad of excuses, wasn't meant to happen, blah, 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 right? So we come up with all these excuses that let us off the hook for stepping into our power to become the people that we would be required to be for that thing to happen, right? So in your example, who do you need to be to attain the thing that you're trying to attain with this funding? Well, you need to be the person who's willing to pick up the phone, send out text messages, and not have this shame or I don't want to bother people or I don't want to impose. It's just not meant to happen. I can't do that, right? What will people think of me? So, the more you're like, fuck what people think of me. I'm standing in my power. This is what's required. I guess this is what's required to get to where I want to go because the other things I've tried haven't worked. So, okay, I'm going to try this. And so you step into your power and you, without shame and without inner negative self-talk, even if that's going on, do the thing you're most afraid of. Do the thing you don't believe you can do and watch the doors start to open.
Which, by the way, that conversation did play in the back because I'm reaching out to people that they probably don't have it, but that doesn't mean they don't know somebody who would have it.
That's right.
And so there was a conversation going on. Oh, this person's going to judge you if you're doing.
So much.
Stop talking. Go to your room. This is what I'm doing.
Yep. Yeah.
And to my surprise, some of the people that I reached out to, I thought there's no way this person knows somebody or even has the funding. They're the one who's giving me the lead.
Yeah, it's always,
that little voice is going to be there, but that's not who you are. That's just.
No, that's your programming.
Yeah, your programming.
That's your programming, right? We were all told to be good, little, obedient boys and girls. Don't rock the boat. Don't ruffle feathers, Don't
share your money business.
Yeah, don't share your money business, And I think the most powerful place for people to be is to be able to overcome the shame chatter in the back of their mind that holds them back, So anyway, on that note, this is something we should explore more often and more deeply because I know it's a big topic for people, but we do have to wrap up today. Any final words before we do?
I'm just very grateful for the meditations that we do every day during the week. It's really bringing new layers of clarity and awareness to myself that I'm truly ready for. And I don't feel as if I would get it any other way than taking the time to sit still and to listen and having that committed time. I'm just grateful that you've been so consistent with it. You're constantly showing up as somebody that I trust for guidance. And you're just a beautiful mentor to a lot of people, Chad. And I'm just really grateful for you. But those meditations, that tool that you put out there is just invaluable. And I'm so grateful for it. I want more people to join on so that they can have awarenesses about themselves and their lives and be happy and not be stuck to jobs they hate. Oh,
yeah.
It's such a horrible way to live.
Well, my intention is liberation. And so that's everything I do is to try to help liberate all of us because, hey, I'm dealing with the same crap that everyone else is dealing with, just maybe on different levels because some of it I might have worked through, but I got new crap to deal with, right? There's always stuff to deal with. And so, and just so everyone's clear, the meditations are sometimes meditations, sometimes they're visualizations. And we always have a teaching of about 20 minutes or a topic to center ourselves around. So this, you might think, well, I'm already in a meditation. This is not quite that. It's quite, different. It's sort of a blend of teaching, meditation, visualization, and you get to do it together. So yeah, it's solving my own problem is typically, so every time it's like that, every time, this is what I'll leave people with. Every time you have the I can't do that, that's your cue to go do that. Right there. Soon as that happens, do the opposite and see what happens, right? See what happens. So
tell your brain who's boss.
Yeah, that's right. Tell your brain who's boss. I can't becomes I can. So, all right, everybody. Thank you for tuning in. We'll catch you on another episode of The Most Important Conversations. Until then, be safe, be well. And check out the meditations. We hope to see you there. Chat soon. Bye-bye.
That concludes this episode of The Most Important Conversations. This in-depth conversation could set you on the path to self-improvement, which is essential if you want to be an effective leader and take meaningful action in your life. If you enjoyed this episode and want more of these stimulating discussions, you can find them at tmicglobal.com. Remember, the world is at a crossroads right now. You can't afford to waste this opportunity to take charge of your life, build meaningful relationships with others, and co-create a brighter tomorrow. Thank you for listening. See you on the next one.